They told me the big black lab's name was Reggie, as I looked at him lying in his pen. Shelter was clean and the people really friendly. I'd only been in the area for 6 months, but everywhere I went, in the small college town, people are welcoming and open. Everyone waves when you pass them on the street. Something was still missing as I attempted to settle into my new life here. I thought, a dog couldn't hurt. Give me someone to talk to, and I had just seen Reggie's advertisement on the local news. The shelter said they had received numerous calls right after, but they said the people who had come down to see him just didn't look like lab people, whatever that meant. They must have thought I did. But at first I thought the shelter had misjudged me in giving me Reggie and his things, which consisted of a dog pad, a bag of toys, almost which of all were brand new, and a sealed letter from his previous owner. See, Reggie and I didn't really hit it off when we got home. We struggled for 2 weeks, which is actually how long the shelter told me to give him. Maybe it was the fact I was trying to adjust too. Maybe we were just too much alike. For some reason, his stuff, except for the tennis ball, which he wouldn't go anywhere without 2 stuffed in his mouth, got tossed in my unpacked boxes. I guess I didn't really think he'd need all of his old stuff, that I'd get him new things once he had settled in, but it became pretty clear that he wasn't going to. I tried the normal commands the shelter told me. He knew the ones like sit, stay, come, and heal, and he'd follow them when he felt like it. He never seemed to listen when I called his name. Sure, he'd look in my direction after the 4th or 5th time I said it, but he'd just go back to doing whatever he was doing. When I'd ask again, you could almost see him sigh and then grudgingly obey. This just wasn't gonna work. He chewed up a couple shoes and some unpacked boxes. I was a little stern with him and he resented it. I could tell. The friction got so bad I couldn't wait for the 2 weeks to be up. And then when it was, I went full-on search mode for my cell phone amid all the unpacked boxes. I remembered leaving it on the stack of boxes for the guest room, but I also mumbled rather cynically that darn dog probably hid it for me. I finally found it, but before I could punch up the shelter's numbers, I also found his pad and other things from the shelter. I tossed the pad in Reggie's direction. He sniffed it and wagged his tail, some of the most enthusiasm I had seen since bringing him home. But then I called, "Hey Reggie, you like that? Come here and I'll give you a treat." Instead, he sort of glanced in my direction. Well, maybe glared is more accurate. And then he gave a discontented sigh and flopped down with his back to me. Well, that's just not gonna do it either, I thought, and punched in the phone number. But I hung up when I saw the sealed envelope I'd forgotten about. "Okay, Reggie, see if your previous owner has any advice. To whomever gets my dog." Well, can't say that I'm happy writing if you're reading this. A letter I told the shelter could only be opened once Reggie's new owner. I'm not even happy writing it. If you're reading this, it means I just got from my last car ride with my lab after dropping him off at the shelter. He knew something was different. Packed up his pads and toys for and set them on the back door before I tripped. This time, it's like he knew something was wrong. Something is wrong, which is why I have to make it right. So let me tell you about my lab in the hopes that it will help you bond with him, and he with you. First, he loves tennis balls. The more the merrier. Sometimes I think he's part squirrel the way he hoards them. Usually always has 2 in his mouth, and he tries to get a 3rd in there. He hasn't done it yet. No matter where you throw them, he'll bound after it, so be careful. And please don't do it by roads. I made that mistake once and it almost cost him dearly. Next are commands. Maybe the shelter staff told you, but I'll go over them again. Reggie knows the obvious ones. Sit, stay, come, heel. He knows hand signals. Back, to turn around, and he goes when you put your hand straight up and over. If your hand goes out left or right, shake, shaking water off, and paw for a high five. He does down and when he feels like lying down. Bet you could work with him on that some more. He knows ball and food and bone and treat like nobody's business. I train Reggie with small food treats. Nothing opens his ears like little pieces of hot dog. Feeding schedule. Twice a day, once about 7 in the morning, and again at 6 in the evening. Regular store-bought stuff. The shelter has the brand. He's up on his shots. Call 9 Street and update his info with yours. They'll make sure to send you reminders for when he's due. Be forewarned, Reggie hates the vet. Good luck getting him in the car. I don't know how he knows, but he knows. Finally, give him some time. I've never been married, so it's only been Reggie and me his whole life. He's gone everywhere with me, so please include him on your daily car rides if you can. He sits well in the back seat and doesn't bark or complain. He just loves to be around people. Me, especially. Which means that this transition is going to be hard. With him going to live with someone new, so I need to share one more bit of info with you. His name's not Reggie. I don't know what made me do it, but when I dropped him off at the shelter, I told him his name was Reggie. He's a smart dog. He'll get used to it and respond to it. I have no doubt, but I just couldn't bear to give them his real name. For me to do it, it seemed so final. Handing him over to the shelter was as good as admitting I'd never see him again. If I end up coming back, getting him, tearing up this letter, it means everything's fine. But if someone else is reading it, well, it means that his new owner should know his real name. It'll help you bond with him. Who knows, maybe you'll even notice a change of his demeanor if he's been giving you problems. His real name is Tank, because that's what I drive. And again, if you're reading this, you're from the area. Maybe my name's been on the news. I told the shelter they couldn't make Reggie available for adoption until they received word from my company commander. See, my parents are gone. I have no siblings. No one I could have left Tank with. And it was my only real request of the Army upon my deployment to Iraq. That, make one phone call to the shelter in the event to tell them that Tank could be put up for adoption. Luckily, my colonel is a dog guy too, and he knew where my platoon was heading. He said he'd do it personally, and if you're reading this, he made good on his word. Well, this letter is getting downright depressing. Even though, frankly, I'm just writing it for my dog, I couldn't imagine if I was writing for a wife, a kid, a family. But still, Tank has been my family for the last 6 years. Almost as long as the Army's been my family. And now I hope and pray that you'll make him part of your family, and he'll adjust and come to love you the same way he loved me. That unconditional love from a dog is what I took with me to Iraq as an inspiration to do something selfless, to protect innocent people from those who would do terrible things, and to keep those terrible people from coming over here. If I had to give up Tank in order to do that, I'm glad I have done. He was my example of service and love. I hope I honored him by my service to my country and comrades. Alright, that's enough. I deploy this evening and have to drop this letter off at the shelter. I don't think I'll say another goodbye to Tank, though I cried too much the first time. Maybe I'll peek in on him and see if he finally got that third tennis ball in his mouth. Good luck with Tank. Give him a good home, and give him an extra kiss goodnight every night from me. Thank you, Paul Mallory. I folded up the letter and slipped it back in the envelope. I'm sure I've heard of Paul Mallory. Everyone in town knew him, even new people like me. Local kid killed in Iraq a few months ago. He earned the Silver Star, and he gave his life to save 3 buddies. Flags had been at half-mast all summer. I leaned forward in my chair and rested my elbows on my knees, staring at the dog. "Hey, Tank," I said quietly, his head whipped up and his ears cocked and his eyes bright. "Come here, boy." He was instantly on his feet, his nails clicking on the hardwood floor. He sat in front of me and his head tilted, searching for a name he hadn't heard in months. "Tank," I whispered. His tail swished. I kept whispering his name over and over. Each time his ears lowered, his eyes softened, and his posture relaxed, as just a wave of contentment just seemed to flood him. Kept whispering his name over and over. Each time his ears lowered and his eyes softened. His posture became relaxed as a wave of contentment just seemed to flood him. I stroked his ears and I rubbed his shoulders, buried my face into his scruff and hugged him. "It's me now, Tank. Just you and me. Your old pal gave me to him." Tank reached up and licked my cheek. "So what do you say? Play some ball?" His ears perked up again. "Yeah, ball. You like that? Ball?" Tank tore from my hands and disappeared into the next room. When he came back, he had 3 tennis balls in his mouth.